All right, we do pods, and the four-corner pods today includes Utah and Colorado. Both teams are completely the opposite of what a lot of people expected, not everybody, and then, of course, Arizona and also Arizona State. So let's start with the four corners. At the very top, Colorado and Arizona State are both in the middle of this. Colorado will start with Dion, and the Buffaloes are red hot. They've won 4 straight. They play a dangerous game against Kansas this Saturday. Paul Catalina, Colorado at 6-1 in the conference, 8-2 overall.
Yeah, this is kind of the definition of a trap game, because when you get to seeing your goal of being in the Big 12 title game right in front of you, and you've got, normally you would see a 4-6 team and be like, there we go. But the fact is that 3 of the 4 have come right in a row now. They were 1-6, and now here they are sitting at 4-6. They just beat Iowa State. They have shown that they are now finally who we thought they were going to be. I don't know if Kansas can quite hang with the studs, but I'm here for Kobe Bryant and that secondary versus those wide receivers. I think that'll be great. I think that Jalen Daniels can get some stuff done against an effective Colorado defense, and I think that they're going to get all they want. I still think Colorado wins this, but I do think that it is not a foregone conclusion by far.
Yeah, I mean, just from a mojo perspective, Colorado is probably feeling the best of any team in the Big 12 right now. I don't think they're necessarily the hottest team, because you do have a team like Baylor, a team like Kansas that are also playing equally well at this moment. But I do think pound for pound, Colorado is in the number 1 spot right now in the Big 12. And, last week there were a couple things that kind of made you nervous initially, where, Shedeur throwing the pick right away. And you're like, oh, boy, that's what you can't do against Utah. He had a fumble as well later in that game. He eventually had a really nice performance, and there were some positives. I mean, you had a big play in the run game. You had the return touchdown as well from Wester. So there was a little bit of good and bad, and some things that you hope to see more of, like more in the run game, big explosive plays and special teams, but also like, hey, Shedeur needs to protect the football. I think all that comes into play this weekend. If he protects the football, they can get the splash play outside of just their normal, big plays on offense. That would obviously tip the scales, I think, a little further in their favor. But yeah, they're playing with a team that's, definitely not scared of the challenge, has gone toe-to-toe with the best in the league over the past month, and in most cases has come out as the winner on the other side of it. So they are not, I think, intimidated by Colorado. Kansas is at home. They've got a lot of confidence and momentum, but I think, Colorado is also one of the most confident and momentum-driven teams at the moment as well. I just think this sets up for a really intriguing, entertaining game. I do like Colorado still. But I do know, and I'm very well aware of the challenge that awaits them this weekend. So I imagine they are too, and I imagine they're preparing accordingly. As we heard from Brian Howell yesterday, they don't seem to be a team that's getting caught up in like, oh, we're headed for Arlington, or the Heisman's already ours. Like, they're still playing like those things have to be earned, because they do. And so that's a good sign about the culture of the team and just the mindset heading into a big game like this. So they're in a really good spot. Handle your business tomorrow, and you are sitting really pretty, but it will be a challenge for sure. And I do think they are, as far as what we've seen so far, the team that I do think can go into the playoff and maybe win a game or two from the Big 12, just because of how prolific that offense is and the fact that the defense is pretty good as well. I think their weapons, having some elite guys, does separate them a little bit, especially there at quarterback, and obviously with your Heisman candidate there.
Yeah, I do think I think Arizona State, Colorado would be a hell of a game, wouldn't it?
I do too. Yeah.
I think it'd be a hell of a game in many ways.
It's kind of what I'm rooting for, honestly.
Are you okay? All right.
Well,
I thought Kalani was one of your buddies.
I mean, it's like I don't mind any of it.
I'm telling him next year in Las Vegas or Arlington or wherever.
Or next week when we have him on.
Yeah.
I mean,
on next week. No, he's probably a little busy, huh?
Yeah.
Oh, I mean, he will jump on with us. So there we are with Colorado at 8-2, and what a year it's been, with a lot of awards and high praise for many of the players, and not just the offensive players.
You could not have really written a much better script up to this point outside of winning all of your games. But, I mean, the fact that Travis Hunter is like the favorite in the Heisman conversation. We just read the mock draft the other day. I know Matt Miller's one guy out of 1,000 that have mock drafts, but to have both the top 2 picks being Shedeur and Travis Hunter, to be in the lead for the Big 12, to be in control of your own destiny, to have 10 games, if not like 11 wins out there as a possibility as well. Things are definitely going to change this offseason because guys are going to depart, but they've got a really good thing going on. I'm excited to see kind of the post-Shedeur Travis Hunter era and what that looks like. But right now, they've got some history to go out there and take in this first year back in the Big 12, and so let's see what they can do with it. But they're definitely the team riding the most momentum right now out of anybody.
4 games on the road they've won. At Colorado State, which was an emotional game in a rivalry. At UCF, when they were like, whoa, they had just won that Hail Mary game against Baylor. Won at Arizona easily and beat Tech by 14, 41-27.
And here's the one final thing on them. If they beat
I have
Kansas,
one more note about them. They've played one team inside the top 25, and that's Kansas State. They lost by 3 at home. Not their fault, but that's one of the things that when you see their overall record, there's 3 or 4 or 5 other teams in the top 25 we hear about, but that's the one note that I noticed about their schedule.
Yeah, so if you want to pick apart Indiana's resume or whoever else's resume, then that's a team that you probably need to include as well. And, if you want to really pick apart, well, that Baylor game, I'm sure somebody's made that argument as well. But the thing I wanted to note is if you beat Kansas this weekend, you know who's left, right? It's Oklahoma State at home. So I think you feel really good about your shot there. So this is a big one because I think you win this one, you definitely win next week, and then you're in Arlington and you're probably the favorite and all that comes with that.
That's a great point. No question with Oklahoma State next on their schedule. All right, we go from Colorado, Arizona State. Man, what a great year it's been. A tremendous amount of momentum for them, too. The Sun Devils at home this week in a huge game against BYU. Kenny Dillingham and company are red hot.
Yeah, they are, and they're playing with swagger. They're not afraid of anybody. I love it for them. They're a year ahead of where they said they thought they would be. I think this at home with BYU, not having that bump that they normally get there, that is going to help Arizona State a lot. I decided to pick Arizona State in this game. I think that they're the hotter team. I think they're playing better right now. I think that it'll be a slobber knocker of a game, but I think the Sun Devils got it.
Yeah, I think they've had a really cool 3-headed monster kind of build this season. You walked into the year and you knew, one, that they had a 1-headed monster, and his name was Cam Scattaboo. And if you knew about him, that's kind of where you started with Arizona State and the fact that, they've changed staffs recently, and Kenny Dillingham's this young up-and-comer and all of that. But, now they've made a lot more noise. A lot more people have been able to see this thing build up where now Scattaboo can look to his left, and there's Sam Levitt, a very talented young quarterback who's got a lot in front of him, and especially with Kenny Dillingham's tutelage, like the world is their oyster over there. And then the way that Jordan Tyson, who was at one point in time at Colorado, to see him emerge into the maybe 1,000-yard wide receiver. I mean, that's very much in the realm of possibility with at least 3 games to play for them, if not 4, because they do have a crack. If they win this weekend, they are suddenly going to Arlington with 1 game to play, which would be their rivalry game with Arizona. But they would leap over BYU, obviously, with the head-to-head. So it's a massive game. We know it's sold out. I think the energy is going to be just off the wall, and I think the Sun Devils be rip-roaring ready to go, and so will BYU. I think this is going to be a slobber knocker. I can't wait. I'm super excited for this game, but I've been very impressed by just Dillingham. I think you guys have heard me mention just his press conferences, and I just really enjoy listening to him. And I've enjoyed that throughout the year, especially as they've won, and that just makes everything better when you're talking about success. So I think they'll be primed and ready, but so will their opponents. So I can't wait. But, yeah, they've been a great story, one of the better stories in the league, a lot of star power on offense, and a lot of brightness when you look at the future as well because of that young coach and some of those young stars.
I love listening to him. I really, really do. I like listening to the Dion stuff, too. And, again, this year has been a lot different with how most of his press conference has gone compared to perhaps maybe earlier in the year or sometimes last year.
So you brought up the Dave Aranda quote about the Big 12 coaches, and we kind of got sidetracked because I was just talking about, I think another part of that. But pound for pound, I do think it is an incredible league for head coaches. Like, not just I got off on the tangent more about like how everything is so even, and so it does boil down to like who's got the bigger stars in some cases, those difference makers, and we got into like really what he was saying about what the SEC has, like edge rushers and things like that. But I do think just in general, it's a great league of head coaches. Like Dion, Kleiman, Aranda, Dillingham, Sataki. I mean, there's just a number of guys who are really interesting, really good coaches, and it's a cool league, and he's definitely a big rising star, and they've got a lot of electricity right now in Tempe that I think will be on display tomorrow.
And two guys that were red hot have had to go kind of struggle this year with what's going on with Chris Kleiman at K-State compared to expectations, and then Lance Leipold trying to dig them out of a ditch with 2 games left against Colorado at home and then at Baylor, 2 teams that won't be easy to beat. But they still have that door somewhat open. All right, Arizona. 2 players that have put up good numbers, but not the same. Teteroa McMillan will be an All-American, I think. He might even win the Biletnikoff Award. I'm not sure. But Arizona, it's been a disappointing year for them. While Arizona State, and don't you make it, that makes it even tougher, that are across the way.
It's the Utah of Arizona.
Yeah, there you go. Across the way, you have up just a little bit north of you in Tempe is this team having a remarkable year, and you have been kind of just there.
Yeah, it's I don't even like. It's hard for me to even predict how they're going to be week to week because I thought there's a really good chance they lost to Houston last week. Now they handled them 27-6, so that. Gives me a little bit of confidence that they can go out and maybe win some more games. But going to TCU, TCU's been playing a lot better. 11-point dogs in this one. I just don't know if they can hang with that offense. But TCU has been known to, kind of not show up, and I think that's kind of what Arizona has to hope for.
Well, Paul, Houston wishes they scored 6. They only scored 3.
Sorry.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I wanted to make that joke because, that was a tough go of things for Houston's offense, as it has been for most of the year. But that was a really good win for Arizona. Not really good in, like, who you beat necessarily, but just the fact that you needed a win, desperately needed to win. So you put yourself in a position where if you can finagle a win this weekend against TCU, which is certainly possible, then you have the big spoiler game, and maybe even you can get bowl eligible in that last week against Arizona State. But all eyes on this week, and I do think they have their work cut out for them. They just needed a win, like I said, and I'm going to appreciate the whole McMillan and Fafita duo as much as I possibly can these next couple of weeks because its time is running out. I mean, Teteroa McMillan is going to the NFL draft. Noah Fafita doesn't have that kind of first of all, the size or some of that to be able to go and do that himself. But, it's been a partnership that goes back to like it's not Pop Warner, I guess, where they grew up, but that's how far it goes back for them, is playing Little League football, playing high school football. Eventually, McMillan was an Oregon commit. He ends up going to Arizona with 2 of their other high school teammates, and it's a really cool story, but it's all kind of wrapping up. And you expected this to be a much better potential send-off here in 2 or 3 weeks than what it's shaped into because of this season just being a lot more of a slog than you anticipated. So there's a way to make noise. There's a way to still get in the postseason and extend those guys for another game, or it's going to get cut short, which I think no matter where you sat on Brent Brennan and the coaching change, even if you thought they were going to take a step back, I don't think you thought they wouldn't be bowl eligible. So that's been something that I think's been kind of a hard pill to swallow, but it's still out there. TCU is, to Paul's point, a team that you never really know what you're going to get. I think the shootout odds here are extremely high based on what both of these teams' strong suits are. But this ought to be interesting, and we'll see what kind of fight they have left in them here in these last couple of weeks. But it's starting to turn into the end of an era in a lot of ways.
All right, we have Mike Scarborough around the corner, but one more team we've brought him up. Utah, 6 consecutive losses. I mean, 0 for 6 after a start of 4-0 with wins against Baylor and Oklahoma State in the conference. They've lost 6 straight and in an absolute free fall as they enter this weekend, and they play Iowa State, 22nd ranked Cyclones at home, 6:30 on Saturday night.
Yeah, I think Iowa State runs all over them. I just don't see much left, in this corner of the 4 corners. I think they're cooked. Too many quarterback injuries, too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
I don't think Iowa State's just going to run all over. I think their defense has still played well. I mean, you look at the scores and the performances, and the defense has still held them into some games, and it's just been the offense is so abysmal that it's not anything you can correct during the regular season. It's something that's going to have to get changed during this offseason that is full of question marks for them, from Kyle Whittingham's long-term future to who's on the roster next year and all those types of things. I don't think it really matters either way, because I still think Iowa State's the better team. This is in Salt Lake, but again, that hasn't really mattered much of late. Last we saw them there, they had that devastating, heartbreaking loss to BYU. But they gave Colorado a little bit of a run. Now, granted, Shedeur fumbles right at the beginning of the game, but, I mean, they gave Colorado a little bit of a test for a little while. I think they're going to fight. I think they're going to scratch and claw, but I just don't think they're good enough to beat Iowa State. Although Iowa State, guys, has not exactly been like some juggernaut.
No.
I mean, they've definitely shown some weaknesses, so it's just all a matter of like who shows up on either side. But I'd fully expect, if I had to give a prediction, loss number 7 in a row here. And then it's just a debate on, can they win a game before the season is over, which next week would be going to Orlando to take on UCF.
Yeah, two teams that would be just like absolutely
UCF might
a mess.
be playing for a bowl game, too.
Yeah, well, Utah, if they win this weekend, they will be, too.
So,
right.
exactly. So that might have a little more sauce on it than we realized. But, yeah, Utah, I mean, the most exciting thing about them is getting into the offseason pretty much at this point.
I saw where they may have flipped a quarterback commit from BYU to Utah, which is interesting. With that quarterback room the way it is, not a surprise.